right, at this time, I'd like to call this city council workshop meeting to order. I believe we got everyone present here tonight. We've got a quorum. We're gonna do the pledge and everything?
Next
No?
meeting.
Okay, all right, just. All right, council discussion and comment.
All right, I'd like Brittany Nansen, your finance director, to come up to the podium and walk you through the workshop presentation. Now, just to kind of set the stage, we're not presenting a budget to you tonight, so you're not getting the proposed budget. That happens in July, and the reason you're not seeing it tonight is because we don't have the preliminary values or the certified values that we'll get at the end of July as state law requires. But also, we want your feedback as to what needs to be in this budget and what needs to be taken out. So she's gonna walk you through some things, and as she's going through these slides, I would encourage you to let her know, give me and the staff feedback. Yes, keep that in, no, take that out. Hey, wait a second, let's talk about this. We really wanna make sure we get it right. Hopefully the first time. Our goal this year is to provide a transparent document where all along the way you can see this thing and you can map our changes with us. And you can see the personnel and every single change we make. So I'll let you open it up for the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. There's a lot of information. Slow me down if I'm going too fast. Had a lot of caffeine today, but I'm gonna try to get you out of here. Give you a little break before the meeting. So this year we focused on personnel, maintaining our infrastructure, and there's a few capital purchases within the budget itself. I'll start you off with our sales tax so far. So your orange column is your actual to date versus the teal colored column was what we projected. I included matching for the last 3 months of the year. So if we got 400,000 for the last 3 months, I included 400,000 as an estimate for this. These are the actual numbers. Just in a table. I think Courtney provides them to you monthly.
I have a question about this.
Yes, sir.
We presume this is inflation related. You stated that in the paper.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, did you guys see, if you took the for year-to-date 24 numbers, compared them to where and the inflated dollar was in, call it November of 23, can you see, is it more dollars? Not if you make inflation the same? Good question.
We're higher than CPI.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's higher, but even if inflation wasn't there, it's still positive.
yeah,
That's
you're
what I'm
right.
asking.
That is
Okay.
exactly right. We know that this is a volatile revenue source. You see me say that in the paper all the time. And it's your largest revenue source for the general fund. That said, we're planning on budgeting this sales tax at the level that you've got the year-end finishing this year. So we're not projecting an increase unless we have to. But this is how you're keeping your property tax rate low. As long as we've got this number rising, we can look at lowering that property tax rate. And unfortunately, that's just how it works. The problem with that is if you're off just a percentage or two, it's major. And so we've tried to be really cautiously optimistic about this and budgeted extremely conservatively. That's why you see those wide swings. And really, she goes back to that last slide. We didn't include this in the presentation, but if you see the growth of our fund balance, it's largely attributable to that slow rise. The $2 million we've put back in the fund balance over the last 5 years is attributable to that sales tax growth right there.
Because it definitely, I mean, like you said, the way it's going for 24, it could be an outlier.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know, but because the way that it's progressing on the previous years, I mean, I know inflation and other things, but but still, like you said, stay conservative. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Are we able to foresee where our increase in sales tax is coming from, and if there's something unusual happening this year that's not gonna happen next year, like a particular batch of construction, where they're paying sales tax on the materials, things like that?
Yeah, the sales tax, we're able to see the top 10 taxpayers. I'm able to drill down and see exactly how much they're paying. This trend has been going on for years. There's not an anomaly out there. One thing that we've noted, though, that's unusual slightly, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 years, is that Amazon's crept up into your top 10. They're sitting at number 8 right now. I expect that to keep going. That's going to keep going as people are ordering from El Campo. That sales tax is coming back here. And so we're seeing that. Keep getting those boxes at your front door.
Why don't
Because
we
they're
get
helping
that
us.
anymore? We used to get that top 10 sales tax.
I can shoot it over to you.
Yeah,
It's
I'd like to-
included in
I'd
the
like to see
CDC
that.
packet, so
Yeah.
I send it with that, but I'll send it separately. You can go on, Brittany,
We-
if you want to move on.
Inflationary is one thing, but another thing to look at, if we get a new president, the oil field's gonna open up again around here. And so I think we're gonna increase business tremendously, because we have no oil field around here right now.
Right.
So, you know, you're talking about January, it could be a major boost in sales tax.
And David, you're right on that. If something was to happen, oil field would, start booming up around here again.
I know it would,
It
yeah.
would be tremendous, on the whole economy here in town.
And not just with y'all's work over and
With
stuff.
everybody,
I'm
right.
talking about lease crews and all that kind of stuff
Right.
that are.
And everybody in need of everything that's bought here in town, it takes everything to make it go around, and, you'll be selling more, HEB will be selling more, everybody will be selling more.
My business this last year, we closed last month, was way ahead of what we've ever done. And that's without the oil field. So I'm,
It's happening.
yes, it's happening. I mean, and a lot of ours isn't sales tax because it's farm use, but a lot of it is.
Okay. Next up, pay and personnel. This year, we took an approach as a tiered COLA raise. So our employees that make 50,000 or less, we're proposing a 4% COLA raise. From 50,000 to 75,000, 3%, and anyone who makes over 75,000, a 2% raise. We have a few additional new positions in there. We've already included an additional code enforcement officer for the planning department, an additional parks worker for the parks department. We have 2 other positions that we were wanting feedback from council on as to where to go with this. One of them would be a community services director, and one of them would be a program coordinator.
For the aquatic center.
The communities.
Yeah, the program coordinator was requested by Stephen Nadolski to facilitate swim lessons and programming that would, he thinks, eventually in a few years, pay itself off. The question is, do we do that now? Do we wait?
But what does he do?
He's not just a certified pool operator. So he's making sure that all the chemicals are good. He's managing staff. He's doing swim lessons, but he's actually in the pool doing the lessons because he hasn't had the staffing to do it, or the coordinator to make sure that he has the staffing to do that. And so that was his request. At this time, I have not included it in your proposed budget for next year.
Does swim lessons currently make economical sense? And how would it change if we bought somebody that does it now? It seems like it would be worse.
We haven't looked at the ROI on that one, to be frank with you, because at this point, our priorities are those top 2 ones. The code enforcement, we feel like we need more boots on the ground. We need more people working in the field to help us. And also, to be candid on the COLA raises, there's such a gap between all of us now. We feel like it's time to start adjusting those lower wages and helping out your maintenance workers. They're the ones that are going to the grocery stores that can't afford the groceries. So that's what we were doing. But the community services director, we put this before you earlier this year. You asked us to bring it back during the budget. Didn't really ask us, but said we would talk about it later. So we're bringing it back to you to talk about whether you want us to add more than those 2 positions to the budget.
Tell me what the community services director would do.
The community services director would oversee marketing for the city, and I don't mean social media. I mean tourism to a degree, but not to replace the chamber because we can't do what they do. Oversee the civic center and the aquatic center.
And who does that now?
Right now, it's not really delineated between positions. So Brittany does part of the Civic Center and Kevin does the rest. And then Renee and I work with the contractor, and then on the Aquatic Center, he reports to Jerry Lewis. So we just kind of have directors sort of handling it. It's okay. I don't have office space for this community services director, so that's been a concern that I've mentioned earlier. But now may be the time that we try to get these parks, as we're making beautification efforts, to bring someone on board.
I got a question. How many code enforcement officers are there now at this time?
Designated just for code, so we have multiple people in the department that
Okay.
are certified code enforcement officers. Right now, we have one dedicated just to code. The other one is he's an inspector / code enforcement. I mean, both of them are effectively working as inspectors / code enforcement, but
If I may say so, I just feel we're really weak on code enforcement in our city. Extremely weak. It seems to be a problem to me.
well, hopefully a person that is not doing inspections and code enforcement,
Okay.
just focusing on code enforcement, would get that done. I mean, that
Okay.
would be the intent.
Tom, can you qualify your statement of weak? Like, can you explain to us what you see or what's?
Well, yes, I mean, all of the different regulations that we have throughout the town, I mean, in my district, I see all kinds of vehicles and dilapidated houses, and I see containers that are put out there that should be, if they're installed permanently, which they have been there long enough to be considered that aren't at flood level. I just see a lot of that stuff in District 2. Now, I can't see the wheels as they're moving, whether there's already something in processes for all of these, and there may be.
Yeah.
And
It just takes a
so,
long time.
it takes time, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, there's a process. I mean, you saw when they came up and asked you for 60,000 more for demolition this year. They've got a lot of court cases going on, and it takes time to get through that court process. And luckily, they've had some success in court, and they're able to win those victories. And then we have to have the roll-offs from our trash provider to get those houses torn down. But it's happening. I think this position would make us strong, and that's why I'm recommending it.
My input's really simple. As a council member, my responsibility is to represent the people.
Mhm.
And as a council member, my job is to, there's three people that I oversee, and that's the city manager, the city attorney, and the municipal judge. The city manager's responsibility is to operate the city. So I have to trust the budget you're bringing to me is what you need to effectively and efficiently and physically, financially operate the city. So that's what I look for. I don't know how many code enforcement folks you have. I would echo Tom's sentiment that I think we're way behind. I think it's just, you're not gonna catch up overnight, but I'm also not in this office every day. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what the finance director, I don't know all the intimacy to her position. So I look to city staff to bring us a budget that says, this is what we need to operate the city, to pave our roads, fix our drainage, replace our water lines and sewer lines. That's what I look for. So it's hard for me to say,
Right?
you need a project program coordinator.
Right.
I don't know that you do, or I don't know that you don't.
Want to move on?
Okay, this is your tax rate history. It's just a summary. We're currently at 0.4421, which was the no new revenue rate. We are not looking to increase the tax rate this year. We want to at least stay at the no new revenue rate. Again, we don't have solid numbers yet, so it's hard to say. But our goal is to not increase the tax rate.
But why wouldn't we? As what I just said, if we need the monies and the finances to
Right.
do these things to get caught up. Because we can all sit here and agree, or maybe we can't. But I agree, I think that our roads are getting further and further behind. I think our infrastructure is getting further and further behind. And it's gonna cost more and more to replace these items just because everything is getting more expensive. I advocated for this back in 2015, 2016 when I was on council, and another council member told me, we can't spend this extra money. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not gonna get out, we didn't get in overnight. We're not gonna fix it overnight. But I don't think we're making the movement that we can or that we're going to have to. Wharton Street is a perfect example. No one anticipated that collapsing. I
Sure.
think we're gonna see more and more and more, and that's, I'm not opposed to raising a rate, but I would be against raising a rate if we're not gonna spend some of our fund balance. Because that to me looks like we're overtaxing and providing less services. The appearance is challenging. So I'm not against raising a rate. I just wanna, once again, your budget. You bring us what you tell us what you need.
Brittany, can you confirm 1 penny is roughly how much revenue?
I don't have that printed.
Is it 160,000?
Yeah, I think it is, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Is it that? I thought it was 60 or 80.
She'll
It's
get
a-
you,
it's a
it's
rough-
right in there.
Roughly that.
Right now, it's $87,209.
Penny?
Their taxable values are bound to go up the way they go up on my house on CAD. If they go up
That's
on my house
not what we
that
saw when she provided the April values, and so that's why we're a little,
much- Yeah.
we're a little apprehensive to tell you that. Also, you have some new debt that you issued earlier this year that will bump that INS up on your rate.
This also has the fire truck.
And you're gonna see as soon as she finishes this presentation, she's jumping into the CIP presentation, which is part of your budget process. So we're within the bounds on here. But you're gonna see the debt that we intend to issue over the years because we do have a plan. Unfortunately, we do not like to issue debt more than 10 million because you reach a ceiling that our financial advisors doesn't advise us to go over every year because then it changes whether the notes are taxable or not. So we'll get there, but we can answer any more questions there are on the tax rates.
Well, I'd like to say something on that, just covering what Councilman Ward said. There's things that really need to be done, very important things, and like we said, it didn't happen overnight, and we've been pushing it back. It's time that we really need to start focusing and getting some of this stuff done, because as we all know, everything's getting more expensive. There's a lot of infrastructure, lots of roads, especially our roads, lots of things that need to be done, and we're not making any headway, I don't believe. We're just putting up, I hate to say it, but we're just, putting a patch on things, and we're not getting things done right. I think we really need to focus on all this stuff here. We're just getting in, we're digging ourselves deeper and deeper. We need to really make headway and try to do something that's correct and something that's gonna be done right. The city of Campo, it's gonna grow. I got a feeling that we got a lot of good things going on. We do got a lot of good things going on, but we need to focus on the right things, and whether we raise, nobody wants to raise taxes or anything like that, but if we have to get some of this stuff done, and for the city to operate on a budget that, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we need, just like Councilman Ward said, that's what we need to do, because we need to make progress. We don't need to take one step forward and 2 steps back. We need to keep moving forward, so.
I agree with what Councilman Ward said. Also, we need to focus on closing that gap. If all we're doing is just patching roads and doing this and that, and not getting them all done. I know we can't get them all at one time, but we've been steadily backtracking because we're not getting more and more done each year.
Right.
We're not shortening the list of what needs to be done with our roads and utilities and
No,
things
well-
like that.
You're correct, Mr. Hancock. We're not shortening it. It's getting, I hate to say it, but I think it's getting wider and wider. And we need to make something happen, and we need to, make things right. And, because it's gonna get where we can't control it anymore. So we need to really do something.
Hey, just a question. So the with what you guys are proposing here, it does include, I think, a capital improvement plan or something
Yes.
that is trying to close that gap,
That's right.
if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
So we're trying to work in that direction.
Right.
And I think that's what everybody's aligned with here, but I think I think everyone wants to just make sure it's enough.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody. You know, we want to make sure that it's enough, and if the city manager and the team is telling us that it is enough, then I think we're happy with the tax rate the way it is. If it's not enough, and it's not enough to continue to close the gap, I think that's what
You're correct.
Okay,
You're
okay.
correct,
Yeah,
Councilman.
all right.
Yep,
Fair
you
enough.
are correct.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay. Next thing is we have already received the letter from TDS that our garbage rates are going up 3% next year. So this is the current rates to what it is in October, and then I just put the increase, how much it is for each month. Did anyone have any specific questions?
Not sensitive, but how long is their contract with us?
My question.
This is our
I had this-
last year, right?
It's the last year?
So we're
Thought it
3
was-
months after this.
2 more years?
it was 3 with the 4 years, single option.
Nope, it's 2 more years.
Okay. That's audit then.
Yeah.
We ended 25. No, we ended 26.
I've been unhappy with that from day one.
Yeah.
26, okay.
So I just got them for commercial dumpsters,
Yeah.
all of them.
It's in your contract that we're doing this, so,
Mhm.
we will be holding the public hearing as required for that and these 3 rate increases.
So when does this current one end? What did y'all say? I didn't-
26.
26, okay.
Do you, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but out of curiosity, do you begin negotiating with them and their competitors prior to them?
Yes,
And if so, how soon? Or how close until the end of your contract?
we
Is
go,
that
where
1
we,
year, 90 days?
no, it was like 6 months
months.
and before we issue the RFPs.
You over, oh, okay.
Yeah, and previously we've hired a consultant to work with us to do that. I don't know that we'll engage a consultant again. I personally didn't think it was worth it. So, yeah, we'll start that process 6 months before.
Next up are proposed rate increases. We are proposing water sewer rates to go up and transportation user fees. So we will start with water rates. In addition to raising the base water and sewer rates $1.50 each, we're proposing to raise the volume rates just 10 cents each. So we'll go from $3.15 to $3.25 per 1,000 gallons over 2,000. Also, a note is sewer caps at 12,000 gallons. So once you get to 12,000, it doesn't increase anymore. It stays at that 12,000 rate. If you look at, the one with the grayed out columns, these are the calculated bills. I have the first page is residential, second page is the senior disabled amount. Based on the very first row is the gallons. The total bill right above the middle of the line is what the current bill would be. The bottom also includes an updated transportation user fee and the new garbage rates. And the very bottom that's boxed off is the increase in the monthly bill based on those gallons.
The proposed rate increases, what's that revenue gonna be used for?
So this is for water and sewer. So
I
we
know.
just issued debt for the collapsed lines. That will cover that because that's not included by taxpayer necessarily.
So that's,
That's a separate fund.
okay.
So the rate increase will cover the debt service?
That's right. That's entirely what it's gonna be used for. I think there's also, the contract that was signed, the 10-year contract that was signed to maintain our water towers. That one looks like it creeps up quite a bit too. And so this is what we need to support that, self-supporting.
I think next year is the highest year.
That's right.
Not FY '26, not '25 is the highest year on the
and then it
water
starts tapering back
towers, and then it
down.
goes back down.
You know, when we're painting the towers and cleaning them and
Maintenance
Maintaining
them. So, I also included the senior disabled amounts. It's the 20% off water and sewer.
What does the average bill look like?
So we broke it down. There are 460 residential users that use under 2,000 gallons. There's 237 on average that use 2,000 to 3,000 gallons, 237, 30,000, 3,000 to 4,000 gallons, sorry. And then it's usually about 250 to 300 per thousand after that, more.
So 469 was the most, and what gallon was that?
460, that was under 2,000. So that's the most users, and they're under the 2,000 base amount, or the base bill.
What did I read? We had 4,000 accounts, or no?
Yes, that's between residential and commercial, that's all accounts. So this under 2,000 is just for residential. The numbers I'm talking about now with these
So
rates.
about half and half? Just quick math?
Yeah, I think there's more residential than commercial.
Okay.
Troy, do you remember when you ran that? It's more residential, right? Yeah.
They have to be, right.
And then there's also metaled in, and I can pull it separate because we have it set up separate, but they are calculated on residential as sprinkler meters that do not get charged sewer. It's just water.
Where are we at with the iMud? When does that contract?
It expires in '26.
Okay, so there's no increases, incremental increases?
They get increased when everybody else gets increased.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
You wanna go back?
yeah,
to
sorry, I
that
didn't
one?
mean to jump that many. This slide just shows you our rates in comparison to some of the surrounding cities. The second column, the FY25, is our proposed rates. We are still significantly below Wharton, Rosenberg. They just went up for the first time last year in a few years, and I think they're proposing a fairly large increase this year, but they don't have a final number yet. Anyone have any questions on this? Next up is the transportation user fee. This fund, I know Mr. Wallace, you are new to this, and I think Mr. Ward and Koblenz know. This fund is used for mainly, it's strictly for street repairs. So this money is collected and put into a separate fund that's used for street and road improvement repairs.
So currently, the seal coating and the full depth reclamation are supported using general fund dollars, which is your tax dollars, your ad valorem and your sales tax, and this source. Ideally, we would get this source large enough where it supports it, but we believe in incrementalism. Instead of going from 0 to to $10 a month, we're slowly inching there to use these funds for that. We're building a balance in that transportation user fee too. And so that balance could potentially be used on some of these bigger projects we're talking about. You have right about 100,000 right now. So we've been using it for equipment, but that's something that we could tap there. And so we're just inching it up marginally. We're gonna ask for that every year. And as you do that, we're shifting that burden from the general fund to the ratepayers. And so that's the idea behind this fee.
Did anyone have any questions on this?
Why only 25 cents? Why didn't you?
We were trying to make it palatable because we're going up on the water and sewer fees and the garbage. And so a $4 a month increase, we thought was, well, it looks like $4.11 for the average customer was right where we thought, like, let's not hit them too hard there. If the property tax rate can't be lowered too much, we're trying to be considerate given that all the inflation. So that's why we held it, because we can't offset it with the property tax at this point. It's not enough.
So in simple terms, question, I speak simply. I'm using all the roads in El Campo for $2.50 a month?
No, you're also paying for it through your property tax dollars and your
Okay.
sales tax dollars.
So these fees, the water and the wastewater and the transportation user fees, are these adequate not to have an increase halfway through the year? I think that's the look that's hard to.
Well, it depends. It depends. It depends on if you issue debt.
Right.
That's the one thing that we can't control. And frankly, if it
Emergencies.
rains a lot, then it can swing your usage 5%, which in this fund is $200,000. So it depends. I've been here 18 years, almost 18 years. We've only done a mid-year adjustment once, which was this year. We typically avoid that if we can. That's the ideal. You have fund reserves. We didn't ask you to tap them this year. So hopefully the answer to that is yes. We believe it to be at this point.
Next are the outside agencies that we still fund, I guess you could say. Same as last year, Bees, Northside Center, the museum, Crisis Center. Crisis Center and Spot are both in the PD budget. This year, we have additional funding for the Keep El Campo Beautiful Board for projects they're trying to do to beautify El Campo. They are asking for $12,000. There's also not included in that $12,000 is their fees for the year, which is another $500, which is, we've been paying them. They just went up this past year.
Preliminarily, we've included all of this in the proposed budget that we're going to present to you next month, but we were looking for feedback on that.
I don't know if it's right here or not, but on the outside agencies, we spend an awful lot of money on soccer.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kevin, his crews mow the field more often than they would when they're playing probably. And the paint that they use and the labor that they use to mark their fields, we don't do that for Little League. Why are we doing it for soccer?
Well, it's one thing if you do it, it's another thing to get paid for it. We're not getting paid for it.
Right, they're getting that whole part for 12 weeks, I understand, for $200 and something.
Yeah,
That's robbing us.
Yeah, Councilmember Hodges, we can look at bringing the fee schedule back to council. We will be bringing that fee schedule back to council to look at what we're doing there. Right now, you don't see anything on here regarding Little League. We didn't fund them last year, and you
Right.
don't see anything on here regarding Chamber. At this point, I think she's gonna go to your next slide. That's when we need to have the conversation about it is, where do you wanna head with that, and are you ready to make that decision?
So, why do we fund these? Is it because we've always funded them?
Well-
We've always funded for this amount, or can you, or is it because these are integral? I understand the museum, we have an agreement because of.
We do have an agreement with the museum and the Northside Center. We don't have a formal agreement. We intend to fix that. But we've been with them since the beginning. We share the burden with the school district, and so we serve on their boards. The Bees are providing the planners that we aren't providing, we're not going to provide if we don't fund them. I don't know if those planners will be sustained or not. That's not something, it could be perceived as a governmental function that we're sourcing out. The Crisis Center, we've worked with them for years. Again, they're providing a counseling service and a screening service that we just don't have the staffing to do and aren't in the business to do. Spot, you reduced them last year 1,500. We just pulled this over from last year. They haven't requested any funds yet. This has been something that council said, well, okay, we'll throw 1,500 because those pets in the county can definitely have pet problems in the city. And then the Keep El Campo Beautiful Board is something that they're an they're part of the city. Your liaison is Crystal Hasselmeyer, and you appoint the board. In fact, you're not going to appoint them tonight, but they're on the list of boards you're appointing. So that's why they've made the list as well.
So each of these entities provides a direct service to the city of El Campo,
That's correct.
okay? Are all the funding that we include, is it adequate, or is that just what they ask for?
We haven't asked them.
Okay. I'm not against any of this, I wanna make it clear, I just
Yeah.
wanna be able to answer that question because we're providing this funding to outside organizations and we need to be able to justify where it's going, not just because we've always done it.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I'm not against any of this, and I think that it's a good group.
Well, if I remember, when we went through this earlier in the year, there was a lot of these organizations that just kept coming to us because
Yeah.
that's what they always did.
Right.
And then when they show us their budget, they're actually making money.
Right.
More money than we're giving them, so what's the purpose of coming to us?
Yeah, that is not happening with
And-
these,
and- yeah.
with these agencies at all. They're not building fund balances.
Do you know anything about the 12,000 from a keep up? Is that just a number that they threw out? Do you know anything? How do they get there?
Crystal, do you want to expand upon that? I think we're all, yes,
They just repainted the signs coming into the city themselves
yeah.
out of their budget.
They
did, thank you. Yes, Coca-Cola
No,
did that for us.
Coca-Cola donated that.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Coca-Cola did.
But the committee
yeah.
They did.
spurred it on.
Yeah.
What's that?
It was a partnership with Campo Beautiful, yeah. The majority of this, one of the ways that the Campo Beautiful Board wanted to address blight, so we're taking the conversation of pointing out blight, and not having solutions and making solutions. So one of their solutions is to operate a very small scale, what we call site improvement grant, anything like what the CDC does. But so that we can address on the main corridors, properties that maybe need painted, and if we did, up to, like 500, matching, they haven't sorted out like the details, but they've kind of pinned, that depending on how they organized it, they could have a further reach to address blight issues and try to encourage some of those to happen. We're also looking at doing wildflower seed areas along your highway in partnership with TechStop, so the purchase of the seeds. Any of the painting projects we're doing, if they're doing it directly, even with volunteers, a lot of time we have to pay for the materials. And so I included costs for all of their materials for the projects that they've approved to try to proceed with. It also includes your fall sweep every year, and they're gonna be working with organizations to try to organize pickups for elderly and families with disabilities who can't actually bring their stuff over. And so that's kind of, that total is an accumulation of what costs we anticipate, but whatever we wouldn't spend would roll back over into your general budget if we were able to get donations or volunteers for some of that.
The concern that I would have is the grants. How do we give, as the city, give tax money to a quasi board that's then allowed to give money to other entities? How is it quantified? How is it qualified? But I would question the legality to it, because you're giving it to them, and I would just caution on that.
Yeah, we would definitely have to hash that out, and it would have to be approved by council.
This is just conceptual for right now. I mean, if it ends up not working out, it doesn't work out, but.
I understand the
Conceptually
premise, but just cautiously.
Thank you.
Next.
Now let's get everyone uncomfortable for a second.
Tourism. So currently the city allocates $51,000 for tourism out of our hotel motel tax revenues. We are looking for direction from council on how you'd like us to utilize these funds. Do you want us to build a fund balance to do something at the Civic Center for improvements in addition to what we're being able to collect and trying to build up that fund balance in the Civic Center fund? Do you want to put it back to the chamber for their tourism efforts? Do you want to purchase public art? There's a lot of different ways we could go with
Yeah,
it.
there's only so much you can do with hot funds. The state statutory, they have a lot of requirements for this. We have to report back to them on an annual basis what we're doing with them. And so the Civic Center is one of the qualifiers, as is the Chamber of Commerce. Public art would be something that you could use these funds for. After that, there's only so much you can do with it. We can't build roads with it. We can't provide our police officers guns with it. You can't use it for water or sewer lines. So that's why we're just marking it as tourism at this point. The funds that's coming out of hot funds.
You tell them we're fixing the road to get to the Civic Center?
No, I can't tell them we're fixing the road to get to the Civic Center. But one of the things that we're gonna be doing in the next month or two is going out for RFPs to repaint the exterior of the Civic Center. So these are the kind of projects we're looking at, is the replacing the flooring in the main hall, these kind of things, acoustical paneling. We have a list. So that would be an option, is to just let it sit, pickle it till it's high enough where you're not having to raise rates to do these improvements. Or are you pushing it back to the Chamber of Commerce and saying, hey, march on with your new new director?
I would think that, and I haven't heard anything just lately, but I would think the city of El Campo is gonna need a new Chamber of Commerce, and they're probably gonna need that money at some point to further their goals, but I have a hard time imagining a current Chamber of Commerce being able to reorganize and keep going like they've been going. I don't know, does anybody else have any
Well, they-
information or thoughts, being they're so far in the hole financially that,
Just,
I don't know how they keep going bankrupt and somebody else taking that job over.
I think with what they presented, I don't know, it's been a month or so ago.
I wasn't here then.
Yeah, they presented a new direction that they're planning to go with the chamber, and it seemed like they had they had reorganized, and they've got a new effort here to try to do right.
Do they need a new 501c, for instance, or a new name, or a new board?
New
or-
name, but
How do they
they're
plan on paying this IRS back?
Well, so here,
Well-
I did some research.
Hang it.
No, no, it's
So we're getting off the
Getting out of line
subject?
here. We're getting
No,
off.
no,
the
Okay,
subject,
well, maybe, anyway, what I was saying
That's-
was,
That's pertinent to
Yeah.
this conversation.
Yeah.
It is, no, you're like, I'm just saying, he's fine.
let's just hold the 51,000 in abeyance and see how it goes.
I don't disagree with you, so my thoughts
Okay.
on the chamber is I agree exactly with what you said. I'm not opposed to a chamber of commerce, I'm opposed to giving them any sort of direction without knowing anything more from them.
Okay.
And the thing about it is I wanna know how much of our budget that the Chamber of Commerce relies on, because frankly, you know, Mr. Hodges said it correctly a few weeks ago, there's a lot of public distrust. How many more people are gonna write their dues there? If they can't be propped up by their members, then we don't have any business supporting a failing entity.
And
And
before-
they have to build it up, and then, that's how I feel. I just don't wanna use taxpayer dollars to bail out poor mismanagement. I do want to figure out how we fund this, Christmas parade.
I'd like to keep the Christmas parade too.
And if we decide as a city to keep some of these funds in-house and offer it as an incentive to some of the employees, time and a half or whatever, to pull this thing off, I would like to do that. Because I do think that's a town-wide event. I don't believe that some of the other chamber events are truly town-wide, but I
Yeah.
do believe that.
I think the
chamber-
Christmas mall is worth keeping too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one that could come off. I think Prairie Days is the other one that could come off.
Prairie Days,
That's my personal opinion.
But let's be fair though, hold on. So the city does put on the parade. The chamber hosts it, they take the revenue, the fees, and then they manage the parade entrance to go around. The city provides the traffic control with overtime, the public works guys, and they also provide the police service. So we already are. The question is, who's gonna line up the floats?
I was gonna say, why can't, I know we have a lot of committees, and to utilize the volunteers that the chamber have, why can't we set up a committee and ask those to volunteer for those two?
Well, so maybe those parks committees would fall under
Right.
it, or.
But
Yeah, and we could put this on a future agenda item to discuss how we
Right.
can make these things happen. So we're hearing that. I think our question is, on this 51,000, are you wanting us to just earmark it as tourism? You heard JJ Croy come up here and ask, make a plea for tourism money for Little League. We don't have it in there right now. We just have it marked as tourism.
Can you support the Little League through the hot funds?
If they put heads in beds, we can.
I mean, you have a finite amount of heads. to
You
put
got,
on
you
bids.
gotta
Put their heads.
validate it, right?
It's gonna be very hard to prove that, especially if you have, let's say, a wind farm being built, and they're taking up 95% of them, and you got 5 beds.
Yeah.
5% of the beds are going for a Little League. A lot of these teams are driving back and forth.
I'm not so sure that it would be super hard to prove, because you would be able to pull these hotel reports for these weekends and compare them to other weekends. I mean, Hilton's not a small firm. They're gonna be able to pull data to say, hey, look, we were completely full this weekend. Well, why?
We tried that. It didn't substantiate it. And so we had trouble with that when we were comparing, say, July, the week of the state tournament of last year versus the week before or the week after. We just had trouble getting there. But that may be because the data we're seeing is just simply the receipts, the revenue, and that could be that there may be something more complicated than that. And we're getting it on a monthly basis, so that complicates things slightly also.
Well, Mayor, I agree with you. We're getting off the subject,
Yeah.
we're getting too far into this
Sure,
subject.
we're getting
but,
in the weeds, yeah.
I would think that before we decide to allocate this $51,000 to the chamber, we need to see a projected cash flow, what their income is.
That's correct.
Uh,
But I can say one thing. The Civic Center does need some help. I was there this weekend. there's some toilets that are not working, there's some other things that are in there, so, you know, we can really allocate some money towards that civic center. That does bring revenue, I believe, because I believe it was plumb full this weekend. I don't know how much revenue, that we're really making off of it, but there are some things that do need.
We're tracking that on all the rental applications.
That's why I don't wanna throw it back to the chamber right now, cause there's no way this chamber, in my opinion, is gonna be able to survive.
Well, for now, what we'll do is continue to allocate it as tourism.
So could you, if you're gonna do that for the, I just lost my train of thought. The data, you wanna see the data for the Chamber of Commerce and the impact. I'd like to see if council's going to consider funding the Little League or Boys and Girls Club or whoever, especially the Little League, cause it keeps getting brought up through this tax. I'd like to see that data. I'd like to see the impact, and I've asked for it 2 or 3 times, because that's what's been said is the economic impact. I know you can't show it exactly. That's the challenge, is to defend it. But if we're gonna do that, I'd like to see the data that would support that, that's all.
And a lot of them folks that come for the ballpark, for the, you know, for the tournaments and stuff, they're all parked at Lost Lagoon in their campers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
And
that
they're
one's
also-
tough
they're
because
also
it's July.
eating at our restaurants
That's
too.
right, that's true,
I do have a question, though.
sure.
So the 51,000 is allocated for tourism and such, but that's not all the hotel motel tax. we
No,
get,
the
right?
rest of it we take to the Civic Center.
The rest is already going to the
Yeah,
civic
it's
center.
already going to the Civic Center.
And how much is that?
Ugh.
Total hotel motel
The
tax?
total's 160,000, I think. Yeah, it's right at,
So in the neighborhood of 100?
yeah, not quite.
Okay.
You're pushing it over there already.
Oh, so you were just talking about, this would be additional to
Right,
that,
right,
civic-
if we
okay.
start building up the fund,
I
that
follow
may
you.
be something.
That's
you
why
can-
you're saying something additional to do at the civic
Right,
center or
right.
whatever. Okay, got it.
Okay, next, some of the capital requests that are in the operating budget is we are needing 4 dump trucks, 2 for public works and 2 for utilities. There's an ambulance in the EMS fund. The police department needs to replace their body cameras for the officers. We want to start adding in shade structures at the parks. We already have it at Friendship and Rotary, I believe.
No, just
No,
friendship.
Okay. Their parking lots need some repairs. City Hall needs to be redone, Friendship Park, Rotary Park, Second Street Park, and then they want to redo the entrance to Legacy Park. The Civic Center parking lot also needs to be redone. Kevin has a list of roads for seal coating, depending on how the bids come in. This is a list of streets that are on the list for next year.
She
that
said
are up.
bid, she means road materials.
Right, sorry. And then we also have, which was approved at the last meeting, the sanitary sewer repairs to cotton, corn, flax, and rice. That was part of that, the grants, and then the additional overage we're gonna include in the operating budget.
Hang on.
Oops, sorry.
Shade structures. I was at Willie Bell for their Juneteenth. It
They're the
was-
first one we were looking at.
Okay. Well, but there's other problems there besides shade structure.
We agree, we just don't have the money for them. That, replacing our restrooms.
Well,
$250,000.
there's deteriorating, wood that's around their playground, and there's a spike sticking out that somebody could trip over and get hurt. And there is some maintenance that needs to be done out there.
Can you send me the list?
I can,
Okay.
and pictures if you would like.
No, I don't need the pictures, I just
Okay.
need the list. Some of that we can get done this year.
Okay.
Brittany, I know that the Hunter Club can grant money for like the police body cameras. Do we have any success with those guys? The local Morton County Hunter Club and getting some of that stuff?
I know in the past they've done, the bulletproof vest.
Yeah,
Yes,
chief.
Each year, the bulletproof vests that we need, that's what they've been funding.
Okay, so they're working with us. This would be
Yes.
above and beyond. Great, thank you.
Yes.
And this is our current debt obligations per year. The first column is general fund, second column is utility fund, and the last column is the total for both. This also includes the fire truck that was issued last year, the debt, and the debt we just issued a couple months ago.
Do you have any more debt this year?
Not in
Nope,
this
not
calendar year.
until after
We will be
December.
asking you to issue debt in January.
So this goes into we try to stay under the 10 million in a calendar year based on our financial advisor's recommendations. So we can move on to the next PowerPoint.
And we'll try to walk you through this one pretty quickly if we can. I think, Brittany, the first two we can
Yeah, I'll just
skip.
jump through.
Yeah,
Again, you all have received this PowerPoint. It was in, I think, the last agenda packet.
yeah, a couple.
Okay, so let me get on the right page so I can take notes. So this is up first. This is the Tres Palacios Phase 2, the $14.8 million grant that we have from the CDBG right now, the GLO grant.
The parentheses is the, we should have restated this, the parentheses is what the grant's paying, you're paying the 148,000.
Has that already been budgeted?
W-
Or do we have the funds for the 148, or is it gonna have to come out of this year's budget?
We don't believe it'll be coming out of this year 25's budget, it'll be coming out of 26. We're not gonna be on target to finish this project until then, and it'll be the last of it.
So we don't pay until,
Yeah,
okay.
she's gonna get reimbursed all the way until we get to that point.
Okay, next up is the District 2 drainage improvements. This is also a grant from the GLO.
There's
We-
no match on this one.
Correct, and we are in the engineering finalization stage. Next one is the CDBG grant for the sanitary sewer pipe bursting on rice, corn, cotton, and flax. The total is $510,800. The grant is for $350,000. This is the one that you saw, I think it was the last meeting. The next one is the South Wharton sewer line, the pipe bursting. We issued debt for this one in April, it closed. This is the North Wharton. This is also included in that debt issuance. The Avenue F water well, the replacement of the well, it was designed and built in 51. It was funded with 2021 certificates of obligation, and we are just waiting on the TCEQ approval so we can begin the bidding process.
What all is being done there? Is it just the well, or is it the tank as well?
It's both.
Both?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is the wastewater treatment plant, the repairs to the treatment plant, the underground air piping, chlorine chamber outfall, aeration pumping at the Bullseye Treatment Unit, additional for a second belt filter, and training existing oxidation ditch in a,
I think I badged that one when I typed that one in there.
Sorry.
It's the existing oxidation ditch and effluent weir gate. And Councilmember Wallace, you're the only one that knows, I'm sorry, it's presumptuous of me, that knows all about this because you've asked extensively about it in the Public Works Committee meetings.
Fair enough.
Basically, we're doing a lot of improvements that are absolutely necessary for the treatment plant to continue. The only work that we've done in the last several years is energy efficiency improvements, and that's not what these are. These are just to keep the plant online.
So have you looked at replacing that and
The
working with,
treatment plant?
a group that would come in and build it? And then either do a lease back or an operation?
We've peripherally explored that because we know that will be in the future. And that'll be a long-term planning.
I mean, let's just, I don't know what it
Yeah.
would cost to replace that, but if it's $5 million,
It's more than that.
I mean, I know from the projects that I'm developing and working on that I get calls all the time. They would come in and do this, and they would do something with the water, they would do something with the waste. I mean, it would almost be a wash for us. I mean, they would pay us for some of it. They would build it and then pay us.
I'll reach out to you after the meeting.
just to wrap up this one real quick, this should be going out for bids in May or June of this year. Town and Country, this was included in the debt issuance with South and North Wharton sanitary sewer. This is currently in the engineering phase. Next up is Sandy Corner, the water line upgrade, force main, curb and gutter and sidewalks. This will require a debt issuance, and we are projecting to do this in FY '28.
And that's because we're waiting on the hospital to be built.
And that's what the whole intent was with that road,
Right.
because 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was an intent to rebuild that road.
Right. That's why we've pushed it down that road.
Bless you. Okay, Avenue C, the road reconstruction of Avenue C, this will also require a debt issuance. The road will replicate the reconstruction of West Norris, and it's slated for FY '28-29.
Wow, that's the entire Avenue C from Wharton all the way to
Yes, it is. All the way to,
Jackson?
Jackson? And then through that, all the way to like Montserrat?
That's 2 phases.
Added together, all the way to Wharton Street.
Okay, hold, from where to where?
From that 5-way,
5 point.
Oh, so it's just north.
So when do we think we might repair Avenue C? It gets worse by the month.
I have it on the list for 28 because of the,
We can't wait that long. I mean, it's gotta be done this year.
Well, it cost us
That is gonna wind up as a gravel road.
It cost us six or 7 million, or it's gonna be more than that. It's what, $2 million to finish that little section? So
yeah.
you're looking at about $8-9 million just for Norris Street.
Yeah.
I can't possibly imagine 5 million is gonna be the right number, especially in 2028.
that's what they're giving us right now, but you're right, in 2028, that number could like look quite a bit different. It is something we could consider issuing debt for next year.
But I'm not talking about curb and
It'll
gutter and
have
things,
to be-
rebuilding. I'm just talking about the shoulders of it that are
It would mean that
collapsing.
your INS rate would increase significantly so that means your tax rate would look a little different.
But
But what we're hearing from you tonight or this afternoon is, hey, if we need it, do it. If we don't need it, don't. So bring it to us if you need it, and we're willing to make those.
So we just have to do some temporary patching like we're doing on so many other roads.
Yes, sir, that's what we've been doing. It's, as you can see in the pictures, it's not working.
Hey, just real quick, going back to that one for the around in front of the hospital, does that 2028, does that align with what they're talking about now for the hospital? Or, I mean, I know that's kind of been a moving target here lately, but I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I'm just wondering if that aligns, or is it coming in, we're just gonna try to take care of our part and then?
No, we're
or
waiting on-
how does this,
We're gonna wait for them to
okay,
finish.
okay, yeah, that's just
So
curious.
that's what we put out there.
Okay,
was
as
for
a
them to
target for
finish.
now, and then as
Yeah.
things move, we can shift it in
Right.
the plan if we need to. Okay,
Needed, yeah.
okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Next is West Norris Phase 3. This is the improvements from the 5-way stop to Avenue E, and it also includes sidewalks. This will require a debt issuance, and we have it slated for 28-29. West Norris Phase 4.
It'll take, that last project will take out the ramp that gives you a thrill when you're on West Norris. The difference
there.
between the concrete and when it turns back into that, so, you've gotta do this one first. Well, we have it second. We may have to rearrange this thing. We've gotta make sure that Avenue C ties on correctly. So there was a lot of thought behind that. So we'll make sure we're ready for that.
That needs to be
And we're
done.
doing this because of a turn lane. You want a turn lane. It's,
No, there's a few reasons why we're doing it. Kevin, do you want to state what those are? It's not just the turn lane. Yeah. It was intended to be finished years ago.
So that whole area, the water has been done. So what we need to do is create that same 41-foot width, concrete up, curb and gutter, realign that road so that as the phase 4, which is the section between the 5-way and 71, it'll align with that so that it comes straight in. At that same time, it creates a right turn lane coming off of Avenue C, which would make that better. So that is the anchor to those other two projects. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense.
You may want to stay up there, Kevin. Most of these are, really all of them are yours.
Okay, this is the Sam Bishkin lift station replacement.
The
It'll
one on the
replace.
right.
Hmm?
It's the one on the right, not the one on the left.
by the cabinet shop, right?
Right, yeah, that's an actual photo from Google Photos. This will replace the lift station, the force main, and the sanitary sewer manhole. This will require a certificate of obligation, debt issuance for projecting FY 3031.
And that would keep your rate smooth, because your retirement of your debt would mean
Years
that
off
you
from-
wouldn't have any rate adjustments because of that. That's what all the utility debt does. That's why we structure it the way. But if you can see that, I don't feel like that site's number one, very secure, but that lift station isn't sized enough for any development that would be along the highway that would run through that lift station. So we're gonna have to do something about it. It might be sooner than 30, but that's what we're projecting right now.
Wilson Road extension for utilities to extend utilities to the loop and plan for potential growth. This will also be a certificate of obligation for FY31. Avenue I, West Jackson to Fifth Street, the sanitary sewer pipe bursting. It will require a debt issuance for FY32, sorry.
And we will probably be moving this project up to FY25. If we come in under budget on our North Wharton Street project and looking at the cooperative purchasing pricing, we probably will. So it's possible that this one would get moved up.
The mechanic in Washington sanitary sewer pipe bursting. This will also require a debt issuance. It is slated for FY32. This is West Norris, West Loop to Button Street, sanitary sewer pipe bursting. It will also require a debt issuance in FY32. And we try to group these together to pay the issuance cost once, because it's very expensive. This is the Avenue I North Pipe bursting. It will require a debt issuance in FY33. This is the total debt for all the projects listed on there. Of that, it's $45 million. Of that, 15 million of it is grant funds. The other 29.7 million will be need debt issuances.
I think when I would take the grant funding out when you present this.
Okay.
So that's more accurate, because that's grants, it's free money to us. Good for getting the money.
Do that.
I'm glad you were able to get that money. And I wanna say, cause I've been talking to Courtney about this a lot, about having this plan, and I really appreciate the start. I'm a little disappointed just because it doesn't address, like the Avenue K's around the schools. It doesn't address some of the roads that we're having problems with. I would like to see around the schools improved, because when people come to
That's
town to look at the city, they're gonna go look at the schools to see what they look like, and Avenue K's bad. I see, and I'm gonna advocate for it again. I'd like to outsource some of this just because I think that we can get more bang for our buck. I know it's been disagreed with me, but take Sioux Street, for example. The sites that were being fixed are gonna have to be repaired again. That, to me, we've gotta start making progress and not having to go back and redo things, that's all. But yeah, we've gotta address what's already there. I mean, this is a great start. It is, and I wanna commend you for putting this together and thank you for it. But we've gotta look at what we have, and I just think around the schools is a good start, and then work out this way. Same thing with your pipe bursting, go your main trunks and then build off of that.
Good point.
Okay, a few things that are unfunded that will need to be prioritized. A new public works facility, a utility extension along I-69, and County Road 451 improvements.
And after we met with the Public Works Committee, we'll be bringing the Public Works facility back to council to consider issuing that debt next year to get that facility going.
What are the other two? What's this 4.26 million?
The utility extension along I-69 would be ideally a joint project with the CDC to promote growth along the interstate. We do not have, well, what's Highway 59, but will be I-69. We do not have water and sewer on the other side of the highway, and that is all zoned appropriate for us to bring in manufacturing and make things happen out there.
And what are 451 improvements?
County Road 451 is the road where Lost Lagoon is, and that road is in terrible shape. I don't have a number on what we can do on that. It's getting beat up by those RVs.
Is that Elwood Street?
No, is that what that,
Off
of it?
Elwood.
Yeah, and it's the
Where
one
is
that
it?
turns.
Elwood
It's
Street
not all the
down to Lost
counties, it's
Lagoon.
half
Oh,
ours.
yeah, okay.
When we annexed them in, we took half of it.
But
So
ours isn't that bad, right? No?
We did some repairs.
we did some repairs on it.
I thought I drove by there the other day, wasn't too bad. It's the
It's
county's
not too
part.
bad, it's just, there needs to be some work on it.
We were hoping to partner with the county.
That's right, just hasn't,
Okay, so I'm being nice
El
tonight.
Nino.
Well, that's at least a good precinct to partner with the county.
Yeah.
Along, I-69, what's happening over there in Wharton, and who's paying for that, and what are they,
I
what are
was
they
just
doing with that
fixing to
big
ask that
line?
question, yes.
Where does that line go into anywhere?
It's TxDOT doing that, not the city.
And what for?
They're planning for the highway expansion.
Aren't we gonna do the same thing
They're not
here in El
gonna,
Campo for our utilities?
it's the
Isn't
102.
that what we're
is
talking
what
about
it's
here?
on. Ours is bringing water and sewer along. This wouldn't be for any road work. I'm not sure, those pipes are those being paid for by the EDC? Yeah, the utilities are paid for by the Economic Development Corporation of Wharton. And the rest is paid for by TxDOT, and they're doing it all while they're in there.
I was just fixing to ask the same question.
Yeah, I see those
Hancock,
huge
because
pipes they're putting in, it doesn't look like they're going anywhere.
They're putting some
Ain't
big,
going to
big
nothing.
lines in.
He's planning for growth
Our mistake
and development.
was when we went and spent $8 million to put the frontage roads from 71 to the end of town.
I asked about that at the time, and Mindy said, well, we'll get around to that when we get around to it.
Well, we're not servicing the debt, just because of the way it's set up and the way to develop the roads there. And TxDOT would have paid for it, actually, the federal government would have paid for it through TxDOT.
Yeah.
So I know that they were able to get some support on the north side, but all we did was beat Wharton.
Yeah,
But in reality, it cost us $10 million. So. There was one lone no vote.
And so we had talked a little bit about trying to find a lobbyist or somebody that would go to the state and try to negotiate this for us. And I don't know if we've done that, but it might be money well spent. I don't know what can be, I don't know what can be done.
Yeah, they're not having any luck. We've recruited all kinds of help from the state senator's office and the state representative's office. They've fought like heck for us and actually reached out to TxDOT. The best they can do is refinance that loan and restructure it. Unfortunately, you're sitting with a 1.5% interest rate, and if we refinance that thing, it won't be 1.5. I can tell you that. So at this point, I reached out to some of our partners, Karen Mayfield. To see, is there a way to get this done? And she wasn't optimistic. She just felt like this thing's gonna get roadblocked. It's not a legislative issue. It's a TxDOT issue. And we signed, sealed, and delivered. So at this point, we're on the hook. And that debt will be retiring in 2032 is when it's scheduled to retire. It was a 20-year issuance. And then obviously, we'll leave this off.
We will continue to apply for future grants to help offset in any way that we can.
No, it's good to know. It's just.
Yeah, we're not giving up on grants. It's one of the hallmarks of my administration. So we're gonna continue to apply for grants, and we're gonna continue to fund these things without your taxpayers having to shoulder that burden.
This is just an opinion only. As I said, you run the city. You need a project manager
So we,
to oversee these projects, or maybe even multiple project managers. I don't think we should leave it in the hands of our engineers. Not that they're not capable of doing work, but a project manager might be able to keep things on task, might be able to get us some better work. And it also is a liaison between the city and the engineer and the contractor.
It might be an opportunity too on these with I agree with the project management piece. However, we don't want to take those project managers probably on to, like as a entity or an employee of the community. Instead, you'd you'd partner with a project management firm or something like that to where they get to know your city, you get to know them, you get to find the right ones that work for you and work with you, and I think it would work good. I agree with that, but you roll it into the project cost.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to do it, so.
Okay.
Just an
We'll look into
opinion, yeah.
okay,
That's it for me.
you've got 20 minutes, Mayor, if you wanna keep talking, or if you want a break until the next
I
meeting.
think we'll give everybody a break before we get into our regular council meeting. So at this time, meeting's adjourned.
You know, Steve Cooper works